Hey, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the second session of PowerCat's new AI webinar series. For those of you who were at our last session, we're really glad to have you back. And for any new people, welcome. So just briefly, PowerCat AI webinars is an interactive virtual sessions to help you build and transform your organization with Copilot Studio and agents. And with this session in particular, we're going to help you understand where agents meet opportunity in your organization. Um, so just going forward, I'm one of your hosts, Ashley, and I'll just be in the background answering questions and helping everything run smoothly. And we have our speaker for you today, Steve Jeffrey, and I'll let him introduce himself.
Hey everybody, yep, my name's Steve. I'm in the PowerCat team and I'm based in England, just north of London.
So what you can expect in this session, so you guys know what you're getting into, are some really high value case studies where you can gain insights from successful agent implementations and understand the key factors that contributed to their success. You'll get achievable roadmap to ensuring strategic alignment with AI initiatives and your current strategy. And a SparkTank session, which I know you guys are like, what is SparkTank? It's a bit like, or maybe you know what it is if you know the PowerCat team. It's a bit like Shark Tank, but instead of, pitching business ideas, you learn how to create pitch-worthy business use cases. And this great game was actually designed by Steve, our speaker today. So, I mean, shout out. And then just to kind of manage your expectations, this session is not super technical. It's not going to be troubleshooting. It's not going to be anything like that, which I mentioned earlier. And we're not going to have time for like the technical break fix question style. So, and now I'll turn it over to Steve so he can tell us where agents meet opportunity. Take it away, Steve.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Ashley. So yeah, my name's Steve and I've already introduced myself. I'm a program manager in the PowerCat team. So thank you to everybody who's back. Last week was our first session where Pawan and Vasavi introduced you to the world of Copilot Studio and agents. And also a warm welcome to those of you that are new and joining us today for the first time. So back in 2016, I was really fortunate to be working with one of the first customers in the UK that were going all out with the Power Platform going all in with the Power Platform when the Power Platform was going all out. And as adoption grew, it introduced me to an entirely new world where I started to see employees and end users building creative solutions to their own problems. And it kind of really challenged the way I thought about, software development and software in general, and also like the value of it. Now, over the years, and I'm probably, I'm sure it's true for many of you as well, I think I've kind of learned what the sweet spot is for a Power App. I can spot a good opportunity for a Power App, or I can spot a process that can be optimized with a flow. But for many people, I think identifying like what a good opportunity for an agent is still a skill that they are kind of sharpening. And so our focus today is going to be on how to identify and define use cases that deliver like measurable impact and generate value, whether that's by optimizing or augmenting an existing process or innovating entirely new ones. Now, as Ashley said, this will be an interactive session, so please feel free to participate, ask questions, and kind of share your perspectives as we go. Let me get my good stuff. So we're about to watch 3 real-world examples of high-impact use cases that leverage autonomous agents. Each example demonstrates how agents can drive efficiency and deliver measurable ROI. We'll start with Unilever. Now, Unilever are a big global organization. I'm sure many of you have heard of them. And their marketing team built a smart briefing agent. Now, this agent is designed to streamline the process of creating and sharing content for a marketing brief. The agent gathers relevant information and it drafts that initial content for them and then shares it with the team for stakeholder review. Now, it replaces a manual process. So it doesn't just save time, it's also improving accuracy and consistency. We'll then take a look at Clifford Chance. Now, if you've heard of Clifford Chance, or if you haven't, they're one of the largest kind of legal firms in the UK. And they built a compliance agent. And this example kind of highlights how an agent that can autonomously identify compliance risk and ensure that all of the required documentation is included. It can also notify stakeholders of next steps and allow compliance officers to focus on more complex issues. So it's reducing manual effort and mitigating compliance risks effectively. And then we have Pets at Home. Now, Pets at Home are a large retailer in the UK. They sell pet supplies, they offer veterinary services and also pet insurance. And they built a fraud detection agent. Now, this agent proactively identifies potential fraud. It retrieves information from multiple sources and it performs detailed analysis on behalf of the fraud investigators. So what this means for the organization is that they have an increase in scale. They're able to, identify and kind of process more potential fraudulent claims. It's also increasing the speed that it takes to process a claim or a potential fraudulent claim, and it's an increase in accuracy. So ultimately, it's protecting their organization from financial loss and reputational risk. Now, we've chosen these examples because they show the versatility of autonomous agents across very different industries and also the value that they bring. Each one of them is tailored to solve a very specific problem while generating a high return on investment through automation.
At Unilever, we believe there is a huge opportunity in the end-to-end marketing model to leverage Copilot, transforming a largely manual part of our marketing process, the brief.
At the brief kickoff meeting, without even prompting, Copilot could begin to gather all of the relevant content across data sources. It could create a first draft, and when that's ready, share it with relevant stakeholders for their review. We call this smart briefing. That's quite powerful.
This is not just about embracing change. It's about strategically positioning Clifford Chance for the future while maintaining our core mission of delivering superior legal service. The Copilot agent, working alongside the lawyer, can autonomously identify risks, confirm the inclusion of required documents, and notify stakeholders of next steps.
That just allows me and my team to be free and available to deal with much more complex issues. So the concept that you could have your own personal compliance agent is so exciting.
The beautiful thing about Copilot agents is it can connect into our existing ecosystem. When a potential fraud scenario is identified, the agent will autonomously go and gather the relevant information from that source system, perform an analysis, and provide that analysis back to the fraud colleague. That always ensures that a human's in the loop. We actually built a working prototype in the space of a week.
It enables us to operate at scale and at speed, efficiently, accurately. It allows us to take control over areas that we need to be focusing on to improve our customer experience.
But let's continue. And we'll start by taking a closer look at the first real-world use case. So this was Unilever's smart briefing system. So this agent gathers content, it creates drafts, and it improves stakeholder collaboration. It replaces what was previously a manual workflow. And this is a really good example of how an agent doesn't just need to be about automation. So don't just think of agents as being, about automation. They're also about enhancing collaboration, improving accuracy, and driving efficiency at scale. When we look at the value benefits, we can kind of break them or categorize them into tangible and intangible value drivers. So tangible benefits are measured by time, money, or quantity, like many of you mentioned, time saving. Intangible benefits are typically harder to put a hard metric on, like time or money, but they are of equal importance. So, for example, employee morale. So this agent generates the first draft and allows stakeholders to focus on refining the content rather than starting from scratch. Now, we could say that it improves employee satisfaction with digital tools. It's reducing the time that they spend on frustrating and low value tasks. We then have consistency and accuracy. Now, the agent maintains standardized messaging and standardized formatting to this content, which is reducing errors. And this is particularly important in organizations and departments, such as marketing, that need global alignment on communications. We then have cost savings. So by replacing a manual process, we can expect to see that operational costs are reduced. And we also have scale. So the agent can scale to processing more briefings without increasing labor costs. Then we have efficiency gains. So the agent can also cut down on manual interventions, which allows teams to focus on more strategic activities. So by that, I mean there's less time being wasted on repetitive formatting and data collection. Now, this use case really demonstrates what we would call a layered approach to the agent's impact. Some of these benefits are immediate and they are measurable, so things like cost saving and efficiency, while others probably drive longer-term strategic value. And this is exactly how we should evaluate agentic opportunities, not just as productivity tools, but as drivers and that challenge the way that we work and maybe even introduce better ways of working. We then have Clifford Chance. So Clifford Chance built a compliance agent. Now, this agent focuses on automating and enhancing compliance processes. It ensures that risk officers spend less time performing manual reviews and more time on strategic oversight. This is a very good example of how agents aren't really there just to speed up workflows, but they also improve accuracy, they can help with mitigating risk, and they can allow specialists to focus on higher value tasks. Now, the key capabilities and benefits of this agent are that it autonomously identifies risk. So the agent can scan documentation, processing it for potential compliance risks and flagging them before they escalate, before they become a problem. So one of the key benefits here is risk mitigation, ensuring that risks are identified and mitigated earlier, reducing compliance failures. We then have increased accuracy, so ensuring that documentation is complete. The agent validates that all of the required documentation is there, is preventing missing or outdated records. And then we have allowing compliance officers to focus on more strategic tasks. So by handling routine compliance checks, this agent now frees up compliance teams to focus on complex regulatory challenges and policy development rather than repetitive audits. So what does that matter? In heavily regulated industries, compliance is high risk. Errors can lead to fines, to reputational damage, or even to legal consequences. So by automating compliance checks, agents help organizations reduce risk exposure while also improving efficiency. And this is a good example of how agents can actually enhance governance, not just operations. And let's finish up by looking at Pets at Home. Now, Pets at Home's agent is transforming fraud detection in their organization. Their fraud detection agent is designed to identify potentially fraudulent activity, retrieve and consolidate information from multiple data sources, perform the initial fraud analysis, and assist fraud teams in making decisions faster. Now, the real value benefit here is in the scale. They're able to detect and process far more possible fraudulent claims than what they were before with manual processes. It's also consolidating data across multiple systems, which isn't something they could do before, which is creating almost like a unified fraud detection system. And this matters because fraud detection is high stakes. Delays and errors will lead to financial losses, reputational damage, and possibly regulatory issues. So by leveraging agents, companies can reduce fraud risks proactively while also improving operational efficiency and compliance. Let's take a moment to consider its impact. We find that solving even a single challenge can actually create a major ripple effect of benefits across teams, processes, and outcomes. So think about how resolving this challenge could save time, it could reduce effort or enhance decision making, whatever the value benefit is. Would it help your employees or yourself or your team focus on higher value tasks? Could it improve consistency? Could it reduce errors or create better customer experience? Much like what we've seen with the 3 use cases that we shared earlier. However, value doesn't really stop at these immediate improvements. You'll find that some of the most high impact solutions, they don't just solve today's problems, they create longer term advantages. So on the next slide, we're going to break this down a little bit further, looking at both the immediate and the long-term strategic value. And this will help you evaluate whether the challenge or the problem that you've identified is not only one that's worth solving, but is also one that's a high impact use case. So as we evaluate high value use cases for Copilot Studio, it's important to differentiate between the immediate and the long-term value. Now, all too often, I see organizations that focus on quick wins, but sustainable adoption comes from balancing, short-term impact with long-term strategic value. Now, immediate value refers to the quick benefits, the immediate benefits. So things like saving time, reducing manual effort, improving response times, those kinds of things. So, for example, if you had an agent that automated IT ticket triaging, as an example, this could immediately reduce the workload for the support teams. It could cut response times and it could free up the staff for more complex issues. However, the longer term value kind of emerges as that solution matures and it integrates deeper into other workflows. So sticking with that example of the IT help desk, beyond those initial efficiency gains, the long-term value could come from better trend analysis in IT issues. You could benefit from predictive capabilities or maybe even like cross-functional automation. So that connecting IT with other departments like finance or HR. Now, the puzzle piece in the middle kind of represents the need to connect short-term gains with long-term strategy. So if we only focus on quick wins, then we kind of risk deploying very fragmented agentic solutions. Conversely, if we only chase those kind of long-term goals, we might find that adoption stalls due to a lack of visible impact. So the most successful kind of Copilot implementations have a balance of both. They start with that immediate value to drive adoption, but they're designed with longer term impact in mind. So we've spent time identifying high value agentic use cases. These are opportunities where agents can drive efficiency, they can reduce effort and deliver benefits. And this is what we refer to as a tactical win. But identifying these use cases is just really the starting point. The next step is to ensure that these opportunities are aligned with the broader strategic goals of your organization. So when we think about agents at a strategic level, we kind of break it down into 2 categories. The first one is to consider, where does the agent enhance what you're already doing? So this is really about kind of strengthening those ongoing initiatives that you already have. So, for example, you may have a digital transformation initiative where, like a customer service agent reducing response times, that would be something that kind of enforces an ongoing or an existing priority. And then the second category is what new strategies become viable because you now have access to agents. So agents or agentic solutions can enable entirely new business models, new services and new capabilities. If you consider customer experience, for example, you could have like hyper customized customer experiences, or for self-service capabilities, you could use autonomous agents. So think about the use case that you've identified and think, is it aligned with any existing objectives within your organization, or is it something new because of the technology? So most organizations already have strategic objectives. You can see on the screen, I've gone to Copilot and asked what Microsoft's are. So whether it's expanding into new markets, improving customer engagement, reducing inefficiency, or strengthening compliance, agents, they shouldn't really operate in isolation. They need to plug into these priorities. So before you start to build something, think to yourself, what are the organization's top objectives, and can I plug in my solution to this? So if we took an example of an HR agent, this will make sense as we carry on, the reason I keep mentioning HR. But instead of implementing it for the sake of it, we now match the solution or the use case to these priorities. So for example, that HR agent that I just mentioned that automates policy inquiries or annual leave bookings, this would have a tangible impact on operational efficiency, which is one of the priorities for Microsoft. And so we shift the question from rather than what does this, what can we get this to do? We then shift the question to how does this contribute to the longer term goals, and does it accelerate an existing initiative? Do we get there faster, or will this improve an area where we've struggled to scale? So by aligning agents with the objectives of your organization, it ensures that investment goes into solutions that are driving the most business value. And in fact, I can talk about one. I've been talking about HR for a while. So I'm going to talk about Microsoft's HR department. Now, they have what we call HR Web. It's a SharePoint site that has over 8 million visits per year. Now, it has very extensive content is available on that site. But even so, there were still nearly 800,000 service tickets created yearly, which is annually, sorry, which is crazy. Anyway, to address this, Microsoft, so HR and the IT teams, they built an agent called Ask HR, and the aim of this was to improve the self-service options for us, to reduce the number of service tickets, and to make it easier for employees to find the kind of answers that they were looking for. Now, the impact, we've had this for some like 18 months, maybe even 2 years now. But some of the measurable benefits of this is that now 27% of all HR inquiries are resolved using this tool, using the Ask HR Copilot. It's saved over 21,000 hours of productivity. There's been a 25% reduction in service tickets. There's a success rate of 60% and an improved employee satisfaction score of 4.5 out of 5. So it's looking really good. Now, not only is it available sort of 24 hours a day, which is also great, it's been installed over 35,000 times in Teams. So we can start to see the impact that like an agent can have. Let's talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you should anticipate when transitioning from a tactical solution, so something that you've released, and then kind of maturing that into a strategic value with agents. So the journey often begins with automating processes, and we've seen that with the use cases that I shared with you earlier. This delivers immediate and tangible benefits, like reducing manual workloads and improving response times. It's a quick win, and it proves the potential of agents. However, while those are valuable, they're just really the starting point. The transformation starts to happen when organizations kind of push beyond automation and more towards creating like strategic and capabilities that differentiate your organization. And then on the right, we have the strategic value. So achieving like hyper-personalized experience that I have as an example here. Now, strategic value emerges when agentic capabilities are used to kind of redefine how organizations operate or departments operate or interact with customers or employees. So, for example, hyper-personalized experiences, these can significantly enhance customer loyalty and brand differentiation. So this kind of shift requires moving beyond that initial use case to a broader vision of how agents align with your organizational goals, is what we've mentioned. However, let's look at some of the challenges that you should anticipate. So the first being leadership buy-in and sponsorship. So scaling agents from tactical wins to strategic value requires strong leadership commitment. So without buy-in from senior stakeholders or an executive sponsor, your initiatives can often stall before they reach their full potential. And then we have three. We have data readiness, governance, and risk identification and management. Now, I'm going to do a quick call out to the next few webinars that we have planned. We have one that actually covers each one of these areas. So I believe the next session that we have is about how to navigate your way through AI risks. But as AI adoption grows, so do the risks that are associated with it, ranging from bias in AI models that maybe you've built, all the way through to operational disruption. So being in a position to proactively identify and mitigate them is kind of critical. We then have governance. So governance frameworks, they need to evolve to manage AI responsibly and to keep that balance between innovation and compliance, but also underpinning it with ethical considerations. And then we have data readiness. So AI is only going to be as good as the data it's built on. So ensuring that you have high quality, accessible and secure data is kind of foundational to its success. And then kind of encapsulating all of this, we have responsible AI. So embedding the principles of responsible AI, that ensures that your solutions are, they're ethical, they're transparent, and they're aligned with organizational values. So that's more of a cultural shift that we need to think about. Right, so far we've kind of explored key questions around identifying a problem, identifying or assessing the value of an agent, the strategic potential of it, and hurdles to adoption. But agents, they don't really live in isolation. They impact multiple teams and functions across your business. So let's think about how the questions that I've asked you, how could they apply to different departments and the unique opportunities present in each. So if you imagine going to leaders in customer service, in HR, in finance or operations, and asking them the same set of questions that I asked you, you would expect very different answers because their pain points, their workflows, and their agentic opportunities look very, very different. Okay, clicking. So each question we've explored, that wasn't random. It was part of a structured approach to try and build a bit of a framework for you. And this is where we started off by identifying the problem. I asked you the question about solving a meaningful challenge. We then looked at assessing the value of fixing that problem. So, what is the problem? What value does that create? And then we considered the strategic fit. So how does fixing that problem, fit strategically and give your organization a competitive advantage? And then we finished by talking about challenges, any of the hurdles that you might likely run into. So by moving through this sequence, we can shift, your thinking about agents as like abstract concepts into almost like a clear roadmap. So this is a bit of a framework that we're hoping to leave you with. Now, I started this session, or the first question I asked you was about, what problem would you want it to solve? And the idea of that was that it was challenging you to question the way you work, right? We saw in the customer stories how agents changed the way that some departments are operating. So Unilever's smart briefing agent, it did much of the preparation for a brief. It increased accuracy and consistency. It encourages collaboration. Clifford Chance built an autonomous compliance agent that freed up lawyers' valuable time. It identified and mitigated compliance issues before they needed to be escalated. And Pets at Home are now able to identify more fraudulent claims, helping scale operations and saving that organization a lot of money. So if we could take that question one step further, and instead of think about individual problems, thinking about expanding that question to if you could use agents in your organization or your department, what would be different to how things work now? So this shifts the mindset from agents as being tools to agents providing a competitive advantage and one that kind of evolves alongside your business. So take a moment to think about if AI could, or your agents could enhance decision making, if they could scale operations faster than traditional methods. So by thinking strategically, we start to shift our perspective from, where agents fit more into, how do agents transform? And this is kind of key to ensuring that the investments you make deliver sustained and long-term value. Then I asked you to consider the following question about your use case. What was the immediate and long-term value of solving the problem you identified? Now, this helps shift your thinking from automation to business transformation. And if we push that a little bit further and instead ask, if you could solve all of these problems, how would it change the way your organization creates value, both internally and also for your customers? And so now we look at value as this holistic thing. We start to connect agentic solutions to bigger business priorities, not just the smaller efficiency gains. So the message here is to start thinking beyond the obvious. Then I asked, where in your organization do agents have the most strategic potential? And this kind of helped pinpoint areas where agents can drive the biggest business outcomes, not just efficiencies, but market differentiation. If we push that even further, so if agents were to become a core capability in your organization or in your department, what strategic advantages would they unlock? And this is to shift your mindset from, again, AI being a tool to AI providing a competitive advantage. Now, we finished up by saying, what do you think the biggest hurdle will be? Now, this helped surface roadblocks, whether it's governance. We had some really good, you shared some really good challenges there, from executive buy-in to data privacy. I'm just reading some of them on my other screen, to fear, to licensing. It was identifying all of those challenges. And if we expanded that to think, more broadly, are your systems and data ready for AI at scale? Does your workforce have the knowledge and trust? These are some of the things that you mentioned to adopt it effectively. From processes and governance perspective, do you have the right policies in place to ensure that AI can be adopted responsibly? So once you've identified all of these hurdles, we can take that a little bit further, and we can start to think about, well, what needs to happen to unblock this? What needs to happen, and by when does it need to happen, and by whom? And we can prioritize these activities to accelerate adoption. Now, if we were to overlay these questions onto a template, so I'm going to build out the template. And what I've done, I've added in 3 of the questions. So we have, what would be different to now? So here we're asking our departments and our customers to think, if we could use agents to solve some of these problems, how would things be different? And if you could solve those problems, how would that change the way that you create value, both for yourselves internally, but also for your customers? And then we finish up by thinking about those roadblocks that we identified. How could we unblock them? And for that, I've added in kind of like 3 timelines. We have things that we could do now to build momentum, so things that maybe are not too much effort. We have things that we could do soon, so 6 to 12 months, and I've just added in these random time periods, and then things that we could do later. So if you imagine building that out and talking to some of the organizations inside talking to some of the departments inside your organization, we could start to see, for example, in customer service, response times might drop, and you'd be delivering personalized solutions at scale. For HR, recruitment workflows would be seamless, and we would be hiring the right talent faster. In finance, manual approvals would be eliminated, and compliance audits could run automatically. And then in operations, predictive maintenance could reduce unplanned downtime and improve asset efficiency. And then if we take one of those departments and we speak about how could value be different, so internally teams would have more time for strategic work, it would increase their productivity and reduce burnout. And for customers, customer experience would be faster, they would have faster resolution times and higher satisfaction scores. And then when we look at the blockers, so what are the things that we need to unblock in order to achieve any of this? We've highlighted several things that you've actually shared here: leadership buy-in, data inventory, governance, tool and platform familiarity, and so on. So we'll share this with you, but this would be like a roadmap for, you could use this for a department or a team, or even in your entire organization. So what we're going to do is we're going to wrap up this section of the call. We're basically finished with the presentation part. So just a quick summary. We've discussed the characteristics of high impact use cases, so we know kind of what that looks like. We've considered the immediate and the long-term value, and ensuring that we achieve a balance there to maximize the value of the use case. And then we've covered that aligning these use cases with strategic objective only increases the value of them. We've identified areas in your organization that have high potential for agents, and we've learned about some of the challenges that you might encounter. And then we've kind of wrapped all of that together and expanded it to think about building it, or to provide you with a roadmap. And so now we are moving into vastly uncharted territory. Our team, the PowerCat team, run a series of workshops called Kickstarter workshops. And in one of our workshops, we have this envisioning kind of experience, this use case validation experience that we call SparkTank. Now you'll see a picture. This is like the in-person version of it, where we're sorting cards, and I'll talk through a little bit in a moment. But one of the challenges that we've been facing for the last couple of months is how can we do this virtually? And so today I'm quite excited because we're about to let you all loose on the first run of this tool. So the SparkTank game, what you're seeing here is the SparkTank board. And the idea of it being is that you click on draw card, and a card is given to you. And one of these, the card needs to fit in one of these zones. And I will talk a little bit more about how that actually works, but your job is to basically review it and then drag it into the right zone. Now this is fast paced, so don't overthink. And the idea here is that you can use either your own use case, so the idea that you had right at the very beginning of today's session, or we provide one for you. So it's entirely up to you how you want to do this. Now we have around kind of 20 minutes really to get this done, with a little bit of time for hopefully a bit of a show and tell if someone wants to tell us what they thought or what they did, and then we'll be handing back to Ashley. But let's start off with objectives. So every agentic use case should align with clear objectives, but not all of those objectives are equally important to the use case. So primary objectives are mission critical. Right, so if we take our HR example, we have an HR help desk example. Excuse me. They would, freeing up resources, like on the slide here, sorry, freeing up resources to focus on more complex and strategic tasks might be a primary objective. So it's directly solving key business challenges and delivering essential outcomes. The secondary objective, these are things that are nice to have. They provide added value, but they aren't the primary driver of success. So understanding there's a distinction between the two helps you prioritize efforts and measure real value. Next up, we have stakeholders. So the solution is not really about the technology, it's more about the people. So like, who's going to benefit from using this? Who is responsible for making it work? Who has the most influence over its success? So by identifying critical and influential stakeholders, we ensure that agentic projects are aligned with the right needs and the expectations. So let's break that down for our HR scenario. So here we have a specialist. Now this could, in this instance, this would be the HR specialists. So we might say that they're a critical stakeholder because they handle daily employee interactions, and they will be ensuring that any AI generated responses are aligned with policies. Then we have influential stakeholders. These are our decision makers, and strategic sponsors. They kind of oversee, they approve, or they guide the implementation, but they may not be directly involved in the day-to-day operations. We then have challenges. So it's also about understanding, when we assess a use case, it's also about understanding any potential roadblocks, like we did earlier today. So by categorizing challenges as either high impact or manageable, we can focus efforts on mitigating risks, so we're able to prioritize. And these are risks. So high impact risks are ones that could derail the project if it wasn't addressed properly. So, for example, data privacy. For an HR help desk that processes sensitive information about employees, mishandling that could violate compliance policies and erode trust. It could even prevent the system from being deployed at all. And then we have manageable challenges. So these are challenges that may slow adoption down, but they could be overcome with the right strategy. So employee resistance, and we saw some of the challenges that you shared. Employee resistance was there, fear of change, fear of AI, or just lack of understanding of AI. Now this can be mitigated. This could be managed through training, through communication, and through just transparency. Then we have outcomes. So this is the value aspect of the SparkTank exercise. So, delivering the solution, again, is not about the technology. It's more about delivering measurable value. So here we're focusing on the key outcomes that would result from deploying the HR system or your use case. So, for example, improved resource allocation. One of the most immediate and measurable benefits is like freeing up time, staff's time from repetitive low-value tasks. And then a second value benefit, maybe it's beneficial, maybe it's not essential, would be an increase in employee satisfaction. Also in the exercise, we have these things called wildcards. Now, you may or may not get one or more of these. I don't know. It very much depends because it's randomized. But these are designed to add in a little bit of unpredictability into the experience. So they kind of simulate unexpected events and challenges or shifts that you need to navigate. So, for example, having bias in AI outputs, that could be due to biased training data, for example, or overlooked policies. Ooh, excuse me, 1 second. Just clicked on something. And then we have, okay, there we go. Right, I'm back. Then we have, another example of a wildcard. External competition launches a similar system. Now, depending on your use case, that may or may not matter. And in fact, I'll show you that in a second, where you can put that in the game. But but this is just a challenge to kind of throw you off a little bit and get you to think about how you would work around this. Now, in terms of guidance, this is, as I mentioned, this is the first time we've ever delivered this. So use chat if you need some help. The good thing with this, there are a couple of bugs that you might run into. I've tried to get rid of them as best I can. But if it isn't going to work, it breaks on the first screen, and it breaks very, very quickly. So if you run into any issues, just F5 it and you should be back. Now, the cards that I've put into the tool, they're not fully exhaustive, purely because of time. So if you feel like we need to add in or remove cards, let us know, provide feedback. And feedback is super helpful. So if you can let us know in the chat if this is anything of use to you, then I'd love to know. Now, I'm going to be running this myself, and I'll be talking through. But for those of you that would like to do this, I'll share the URL in a second. But what would be great is if once you've finished, you can let us know. You can share a screenshot if you wish or not, but just give us a notification that you're done. And if we have any time left, it would be great to do a bit of a show and tell. Now, what I'm going to do is play a video. So this is Phil, who is going to be our HR manager. So for those of you that want to use the HR scenario, this is what we're going to be up against. These are the problems that we're facing.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining this meeting at the last minute. It's really important that we discuss some challenges that HR has been facing, and we explore how we can leverage this with the technology that you know so well. Now, you know our HR help desk. It's run by a team of 5 dedicated specialists. They get questions about benefits, payroll, leave policies. It's working, but it does have some limitation. We've seen from a recent study that there are 5 key challenges. I'm going to share my screen so that you can see them. First one, operational costs. Maintaining this system is expensive. Plus, we've seen response delays. The average time to respond queries is over 24 hours. Our employees deserve better than that. It's been trouble scaling. When we hit peak demand periods, our team can't keep up, and performance gets worse. And our employees are telling us that. Our employee satisfaction is 70%. There is a lot of room for improvement here. And a lot of these questions these 5 specialists are taking their time responding to are the same question. How much leave do I have? What is the policy for travel or something else? Their time could be better spent, and employees could get a response faster if they knew where to look. You've been talking about Microsoft Copilot Studio. I'm hoping you can help us imagine an AI-powered help desk where we can automate responses to common queries, provide employees with self-service options, and help our HR specialists retrieve information faster so they can focus on even more strategic projects, right? This isn't just about cutting costs, although I hope there's cost savings. This is about how do we serve our employees better and make the best use of our HR specialists. So if you could have someone from your team take a look at this, assess our current system, look at inefficiencies, and help us understand how an AI-powered system with Copilot could deliver impact, I would love to hear your ideas in our next meeting. Thanks for your work on this. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Phil. So this is a summary of the challenges that Phil shared. There's a small team, only 5 HR specialists. We have pretty low employee satisfaction. It's down to 70%. We have a very high average response time for queries, and at peak times that only gets worse. Now, some of the objectives and the expectations of this system is it's going to improve employee satisfaction, so we're looking for an improvement of that. It's going to provide 24/7 support as part of a digital transformation program, so we can see this use case has been aligned to a broader objective. We're looking to reduce operational costs, and we're looking to free up time so that HR specialists can work on more proactive tasks. Now I'm going to bring back the game board. Whoops, he says, and I'll refresh it just so I have a good start. Now the game board, you can see we have kind of 6 zones. We have the wildcard zone, objectives, stakeholders, outcomes and challenges, and we also have not relevant. So for those of you that are doing this to your own use case, if you wish, you can drag them down to this not relevant to use case zone if it doesn't apply. Now what we'll try to do is agree a bit of a voting structure for those of you that just want to follow along. So what we're trying to do, and we're going to do this quickly, is we're going to have a card that's drawn, and then we're going to drag it into the right zone. So for those of you that think the manager would be a critical stakeholder, put your thumbs up. If you think they would be influential, give me a heart, and I'll just watch the screen and try and take a best guess at what was winning. Okay, we'll go for a manager. So we'll drag the manager over to influential, and then we'll draw the next card. We have an IT administrator. An IT administrator, we would probably say, is critical to this because they would be pretty, involved in the whole deployment and the ongoing monitoring of the solution. We then have a change manager. So change manager, again, I would say is critical, unless any of you wish to vote otherwise. Again, thumbs up for critical and hearts for influential. Let's draw a card. A customer or a client? Well, this is an internal HR tool, so we could probably say this is not relevant to the use case. We can drag that down as we can with partners and suppliers. So this is someone that is going to supply goods or services to our company, so they're probably not required for this case. We then have a process owner. So for a process owner, that would be our HR specialists. So we would say that they would definitely be critical. They're the ones with the SME knowledge. They understand the process perfectly. Now we're on to objectives. So if you remember, improving efficiency is definitely going to be a primary objective here. Phil mentioned that we were looking to streamline and to free up time for those HR specialists to work on more proactive tasks. Enhancing the user experience, so improving the usability and accessibility for seamless interaction for users. Well, I'd say that's definitely an objective. It's probably not a primary objective, however, it's more of a secondary objective. We then have reducing costs. Now, that wasn't a primary goal. Phil mentioned it would be a nice to have, so we could say that that is a secondary objective for this use case. We then have ensuring compliance. Now, I'd say that's going to be a primary objective. You know, we're handling employee data, so there's definitely data sensitivity. So that will be a primary objective. We then have increased revenue. So that's probably not related to this particular use case. Then we have scaling operations. Again, we might decide that this isn't actually relevant to what we're doing. Now we're on to challenges. So user adoption resistance. I would say, you know, that's manageable. We have a change manager. So that would be something that they could take care of. So by clear communication and training, we should be able to manage any resistance to the new system. We then have integration complexity, difficulty in connecting our solution with other systems. So I'd say that would have a high impact on our use case. We have data privacy. Again, that would probably be a high impact challenge. It'd be great to know how some of you are getting on with your own use cases if you want to share it in the chat. We have a skills gap. Again, we could say that could be manageable. We have a change manager assigned, so they could organize any training that would be required. And now we're on to value. So improved employee satisfaction. Well, that's going to be essential. That was one of the things that we were really looking to move the needle on. We had employee satisfaction of only 70%, if you remember. Then we have automating repetitive tasks. Well, I would say that's going to be essential as well, because, you know, that will definitely have a positive impact for HR. We have reducing response times. Again, if you remember, it was over 24 hours. So that's definitely an essential outcome. Optimizing workflows, increasing the scale and accuracy. I'd say that's probably beneficial, not one of the core things that we were aiming to do. And now we have a wild card. So this is one of the where it's trying to kind of knock us off a little bit and build in a little bit of unpredictability. So we have employee mistrust. Concerns arise about the transparency of the AI solution. Well, I would say that would be manageable. We could manage that again with transparency, but just by making it very clear how the AI system works. Competition launching AI. So competitor launches a similar AI solution. Well, this is an internal HR help desk, so I don't think that's necessarily relevant, that we wouldn't need to worry about at all. Then we have one last cost savings, which is one of the things that we said would be beneficial. So now we've finished with the cards. We move on to the next section of SparkTank, and that is the playbook. So for all of the things that we've kind of dragged into the zones, we now get to provide a bit more information. So for example, let's start with outcomes. We've said, you know, this is what we class as being success. So how are we going to measure it? So if we take a look at improved employee satisfaction, we can say that maybe we could use surveys, and surveys would be a great way to track employee satisfaction. How would we track success for automating repetitive tasks? Well, we could use analytics for this. Reducing response times, again, we could use product analytics. Optimizing workflow, we could say analytics again. And cost savings, maybe we could use financial metrics to track that. The next part is, how do we why are the stakeholders that we mentioned, why are they critical? So what I've done ahead of time, and for those of you that are running this with your own use case, you might want to just pause for a second, because what we're doing here is we're putting in, well, I'm describing why is the manager, the IT admin, change manager, why are they critical to this process? So I've missed out process owner for some reason, but I'm explaining that change managers, they're going to enable smooth adoption. They're going to help design transition strategies and address any resistance to new processes. So here I'm kind of describing why they're important, why they're critical to this. And then for objectives, I have some more text that I've already written. So here I'm saying improving efficiency, reducing costs. So I have some explanation of why these objectives are important. And then for challenges, we have employee resistance and we have explainability gaps, or the skills gap, sorry. Okay, now I've finished. This button, albeit slightly lower than where it should be, it's popped up and said proceed to finalization. So I've kind of described how I'm going to overcome the challenges that I've said we could run into. I've described why the objectives are important, and I've shared why the stakeholders are critical, and I've also kind of declared how I'm going to measure the value. I'm going to proceed on to the last part of this, and this is where we talk about the problem. So we describe the challenge. Now, the challenge that Phil shared with us was very well documented. You know, he shared how it's impacting people. You know, the cost of doing nothing is pretty high. You know, we already have very low employee satisfaction. We understand who it's affected, who it's affecting, how it's impacting them. So we describe the challenge, and then what I'm going to do next is just share a little bit about the solution that I think I'm going to build. So I'm going to pop that in the chat here. So I'm going to say that I'm building a conversational agent. It's going to streamline query resolution by automating repetitive tasks like answering FAQs, leave requests, and policy information. So that's what I'm going to do. And then I'm going to click the submit button. And now we have a bit of an uncomfortable silence for maybe 20 or 30 seconds where we need to wait, because what's happening in the background is we are generating a summary of all of this information using generative AI. In the meantime, I'll take a look at some of the questions. Okay. Hopefully it's working. This is where you there we go. Wonderful. So the exercise is basically completed for us. It's come back and said that, you know, the business case generation is complete twice. Now, what we should see here is a summary of everything that we've provided. It kind of describes the challenges with a little bit more detail. It then describes the stakeholder impact. So, you know, who is going to be critical. They're all prioritized here. So what we've done by going through this process is we've really fleshed out this use case. We've understood who it's impacting, who will be impacted, who are the primary users, who are the critical stakeholders. We understand the objectives. We're very clear about what we're trying to do and what we're trying to address. We're looking to reduce cost. We're looking to improve efficiency, for example. We've thought through about some of the challenges that we're going to run into, and we've thought about how we're going to mitigate those. And then we've also shared the expected outcomes. So what kind of value do we expect to get from providing a solution to this? And then we get a conclusion. Now I can download this as a PDF and save that for some point in the future. Now this could be a business case. It could be something that you can use to then demonstrate how this is aligned to the broader objectives of your organization. Now, so I've just noticed someone in the chat, Delia, does it require a character count minimum before proceeding to the final count? It's a word count. So I've put in a 20 word minimum of 20 words. Sorry, I got there in the end. Purely because the more information you can give it, the better the results are when you get to this stage of the exercise. But what you're walking away with is, a nice generated summary of everything that you've done. Okay, so that's essentially it from me. I'm going to hand back to Ashley for the kind of last 5 to 10 minutes. Let me just bring the presentation back.
So if you're ready for more and you like what you saw, then we have 3 more topics in this series so far. The next one is April 2nd, and it's navigating AI risks. And then April 16th, we have evolving governance. And I know that's a big topic for you guys, so don't forget about that. And then data foundations for AI on April 30th. So to get any more information and to register for these, please go to our site, aka.ms/powercat/AI webinars. And I'll also put the link in the chat as well. And you can use the site to get information on PowerCat AI webinars as a whole, and then also just register for any of our upcoming sessions as well. So I just put that link in the chat just now. And then, of course, if you're interested in Copilot, which I'm sure we all are, we have a bunch of Copilot links here and Copilot resources more so. We have the Copilot Studio website, the blog, public demo, the docs, the community page, and even more Copilot Studio resources. So, and those will be shared. Again, they're so quick. They're in the chat already for your convenience.